Enter the gaming backlog, a set of stress-inducing words that a lot of gamers fear. Like the notification symbol on your mobile phone, the gaming backlog is an invisible notification that you cannot stop thinking about even when playing a current game. It is natural that we want to finish games, and what that looks like may be different for all of us. I myself like to see to the end of the story. For others, that might be 100% completion, doing every optional side quest and collecting every object inside a game. And for a select few, you might just be content playing a game as little or as much as you like. So why do we have gaming backlogs? Well, there could be a number of reasons, but I think a key contributing factor is just the sheer amount of games that release each year. Unless it is your job to play video games, most of us will not have time to play all of them, whether that be due to school, work, or just life in general. Maybe you have kids that demand a lot of your time, or maybe you are that kid and you're only allowed to play video games for a certain amount of time each day. Another huge contributing factor is subscription services that allow you to access hundreds and thousands of games. There is more games available than one could possibly play in a lifetime. Even so, if you are like me, we go to these catalogs and more often than we should, we just download another game. I mean, we already have all the other games to play, but one more can't hurt, right? One of my personal issues I have with my backlog is when I know I'm getting close to finishing a game, sometimes I just stop playing that game altogether. It does seem counterintuitive, but something in my head just doesn't want the game to end. So I tell myself if I just don't play the final part of the game, then technically the game isn't finishing, it's not over, right? Does anybody else do this? There's probably a whole lot on the psychology behind this behaviour, but for me, sometimes being in denial that your favourite game of the minute is coming to an end and that you will have to move on takes hold, rather than celebrating the fact that you've made it all the way to the end. So we've made it. We admit we have a backlog and we want to tackle it. Luckily, I've put together some tips and tricks on how to approach your gaming backlog. This is something I will be implementing myself this year, so hopefully these tips go a long way to keeping me on track. Starting with the obvious, just play the game you already own. There are two ways to approach this. You can either commit to a single game until you finish it, or do as I do and play more than one game at a time. I find I get bored of games if I play a single game for too long unless it has a gripping story, so I often play 2 or 3 games concurrently. Now this doesn't mean you cannot play the latest releases, but it might be good to stop impulse buying every game and only buy the ones you planned on playing day one. I plan to implement this strategy this year apart from any collector's editions I want, as collector's editions have the tendency to sell out here in Australia. For example, I already have my order for the Unicorn Overlord collector's edition in, and I'm very excited to get that one. The next tip is to create a list of all the games in your backlog. Now this can be done however you like. It can be as complex as an Excel spreadsheet to as simple as a list in notes or a memo pad. I have started to track my physical collection in Excel, noting the game title, genre, console it's on, game length, thanks to the How Long to Beat website. It is an awesome resource to indicate how long a game might take you to finish based on other gamers' times input. I also have a column for if I've started the game and one to mark it off once it's complete. I finally have a comment section. I can add in anything, like if I play a game and do not enjoy it, I can write that in. Again, this can be personalized to house the information that you find relevant to you. Another great tip is to realistically plan out how much time you can commit to gaming either each week or each month, and factor this into what games you are going to complete for that month. This will help you decide on what games to play. For example, if you only have 10 hours to play games in a month, you might want to pick a shorter game from the backlog so you can feel that accomplishment of finishing it, rather than starting with that next 100-hour RPG. Now, one of the most important tips is to remind yourself that it is okay to drop a game out of your backlog. Maybe you picked it up because of hype and then you play it and it just doesn't click with you. It is fine to not complete a game, and you shouldn't feel compelled to finish every single game you start. Gaming is meant to be fun. So if you aren't having fun, then move on to the next game on your list. Now onto a big one. Don't sink all your games into games that cannot be finished or that don't have an ending. I'm looking at you, Splatoon 3. Yes, MMOs and battle royales can be addicting, but here lies the problem. You spend all your time in Genshin Impact or Fortnite and none of your time working through the games in your backlog. Now, I'm not saying you cannot play these games, but maybe limit the number of play sessions each week or month depending on how you've allocated your gaming time for this genre of gaming. So what am I doing about my own gaming backlog? As mentioned earlier, I have started to catalogue my physical gaming collection in Excel. I have also committed to finishing at least one backlog game before adding any new games to the list. This will help manage size, and hopefully I will be finishing more games than I will be adding. I also plan to do a video series this year on all the backlog games I managed to finish each month for a couple of reasons, but mostly it will keep me accountable and hopefully motivate some of you watching to also tackle your own gaming backlogs this year. So look out for the video on what games I ticked off in December, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of this video series. To wrap this up, gaming backlogs can be overwhelming and scary, but they also are something to be embraced. A reminder of sorts for our passion of video games and our want to play a variety of different titles. Everyone's backlog looks different, but it is a guarantee that we all have at least one game we want to play next. And with that said, I guess it's time to get started on my own backlog. Bye bye!